So, the title was just written by Sawyer, so I have no idea what it has to do with my talk, but let's start. So, I wanted to work on an open source project. I just had a free time, and I wanted to spend it in some meaningful way. And I also wanted this project to be in Perl, because otherwise, what's the point, for me at least. So I was wondering, like, shall I start a new project? But I didn't have any ideas, so, at least at the time. Do I join an existing one? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But we have so many projects, and how do I choose which one to join? So I decided to create some kind of a list of requirements that will allow me to choose the project. So I wanted a project that will have the following characteristics. Just to trim down the list, it's just an arbitrary list of filters that I decided. So I wanted a project that needs some help. So by need some help, I mean it has open issues, so people are actually waiting for things to be fixed in order to use them. And it has failing tests. Why? Because I feel that if I work on tests, I will learn better about the core of the project. It will bring me up to speed quicker, and I like that idea. Also, I want it to be a project that is highly rated. It's just an arbitrary rule, but I think it's a valid one. And I want it to be an active one. So, meaning that it was lastly released, let's say in the last year, not something that was abandoned 5 years ago, because that wouldn't be interesting. Also, one last filter I thought about was, I wanted to have a GitHub repo, because it's much more convenient. It's much easier for me to work with a GitHub repo rather than anything else, because GitHub gives us all the fancy things like working on forks and then shared branches and communicating with the other devs, with the users, all these wonderful things, and I like it. So, where do I start looking for all these? First thing that came to my mind was CPAN. CPAN is an amazing collection of Perl projects. It has over 30,000 distributions, covering, I think, more than 140,000 modules. So there must be at least a couple of them that I can pick. So I went on the CPAN.org website, and it took me on a journey back to 1995. This is how it looks. It's nice, you know, if you want to read the pod document of some module, but at the same time, it doesn't really allow me to filter and find the things that I want. So I had to look for something else. So I talked to someone, and he recommended MetaCPAN. And MetaCPAN, I heard, is a search interface to CPAN, which I didn't really understand what it means, so I looked at the website, suddenly got a more modern feeling. I looked up some modules there, and this is how the same module look on a MetaCPAN page. So you can see you have like a lot of different interesting, cool stuff. You have the favorite score right next to the name. You have a bunch of links on the right there. On your left, sorry. Links to the code browsing, to the changes, homepage, external homepage, repository links, like you can clone the Git, get the Git clone directly from here. The issues page, everything that you want is already here. And on the next one, on the right, you can also see the list of dependencies and reverse dependencies somewhere down there, believe me, and some other goodies. So it's really, really nice, but I really cannot use this to find what I'm looking for. But unlike the CPAN page, MetaCPAN is an open source, so I looked into it, and also looked at the docs, and I found that this whole website, this whole modern-looking website, is just a layer on top of an API. And I thought, maybe I should look into this API. The REST API is exposing an Elasticsearch engine in the backend, from which you can pull a lot of massive amounts of information about all the releases and distributions and the authors and the pods and everything, just by querying it with a simple GET request. So you can do this, get a JSON back from the Elasticsearch. You can even craft something a bit more sophisticated, like a full Elasticsearch query, and get much more interesting things out of it. And of course, I can do this in Perl as well, because I can just send HTTP request and parse the data. But, well, the answer to this is yes. Or maybe. I wanted something simpler. Why? Because I'm not so good at crafting Elasticsearch queries. I don't really like it. I mean, if I have to, I have to, but if I can avoid it, it will be much better. So I looked around, the document for the API recommended this module. It's called MetaCPAN Client. That module allows me to interact with MetaCPAN using objects in Perl, which is already a nicer idea than doing it the other way. I can create an object, I can do the queries in a simple way, in a simplified syntax, I can get objects back, I can pull the data out of attributes. It's already going in the right way for me, so I checked it out. First test I did is just seeing how can I pull some data out of it. The simplest query, just give it the name of an author, or sorry, the POS ID for an author, and it will give you the details. Nothing much to do there. Does the same for a release name, give you the details, everything that's in the index. Then I looked into some more sophisticated, more complicated ways of interacting as well. So you can send queries that are basically done in the language that the module exposes. It just simplifies the Elasticsearch query that runs underneath. And in this example, I just ran something stupid just to find all the Daves and Davids in the author's index, and just print the names of a bunch of them. The total number is close to 300 of them on CPAN, which is nice. So I wanted to try this to find the project that I was looking for, and I started with one feature that is still not released, because I used the latest GitHub repo. But I saw that it was about to be released soon. I hope I have to check with the author. It exposes the ability to do a match all query and to provide a raw Elasticsearch filter. So, to start with what I was looking for, I searched all distributions and filtered for at least 5 new bugs in our team. So that gave me back an iterator of distribution objects that I can work with. Next thing, I was looking over those distributions and looking at the rating. As I said, I wanted a high rating project. So I filtered out anything that's below 4 I don't want to deal with. So I just filtered that out. I used the same technique or another method in that distribution object and fetch the release, the latest release that is attached to this distribution. And release gives me a bunch of other information that I need to filter. For example, I said I wanted something that is active, that was lately released somewhere in the last year. So I did that as well. Has a GitHub repo. So in the resources, I have the repos URL. I just filtered by GitHub. Nothing fancy, just an easy way to go through the data and find stuff. Then the tests. I also mentioned I want something that has a couple of failing tests. What I can say that I want some project that also has a substantial amount of tests, or at least 100 in this case. It's just a randomly picked number. So I filtered on the minimum, on the overall number of tests to be at least 100, and the number of failing tests to be at least 15, just so I have something to work with to keep me busy. And the results for this query gave me this nice list of modules, and a bunch of them that you don't see on the bottom there. And I just had to pick one or not. But this is how easy it is to do it. It was the whole thing was like less than, I think, 30 lines. And if anyone can spot something that they want to work on, right there. Yeah, and what I figured is that you can use this API, this MetaCPAN client module, to answer a lot of different questions that you have. You don't have to search for a specific module, but you can do anything that you want in terms of like going to the index, pulling all the data, mixing it, joining it, and doing whatever you want. One of the future, so at this point I'll just stop the story because it's not really my story. Just made it up. What are the future plans that we have for MetaCPAN client? There are a couple of features that we didn't have there yet. One of them is, as you saw in the code example, I had to go and search for rating objects and release objects based on the distribution name that I had. So this is something that I want to make easier to use. So the distribution objects, for example, will be able to give you an immediate access to the release information, or at least the latest release information, and the rating. So those 3 or 6 lines will be turned into one. And one other thing is the Elasticsearch rule filter syntax that I want to simplify as well, because we have the simplified version for the queries. So we also want to apply the same logic on the filters to allow us to do some funky stuff there as well. And that's basically it. So, questions?
Why are you using the CPAN ratings?
It's just a made-up, as I said.
Okay, so it is
made-up filter.
Okay.
I just had a huge list of distributions. As I said, you have 30,000. I just made up some filters just to trim down the list. You didn't like the rating of DBIC?
No.
No, I don't care about that part. I know that there are all.
You can use the web scraper to vote for it and pop the score.
I know some people do.
Yeah, you can use some help from the guy.
Some German guys.
The other question.
So, what project did you join after research?
Someone was asleep for the last 2 minutes. Well, I said that this whole story was made up. The project that I was working on was MetaCPAN client itself.
Ah, okay. Sorry.
Next time you give this talk, you have to say that first. This is a made-up story. Then tell your story, because otherwise.
I hope that I don't have to give this talk again. The only reason I'm giving it again and again is because Theo didn't upload it to YouTube. So I have to, every time someone wants to hear it again, I have to just do it live.
Yeah, all right. Get the message. Thank you.
So just know, if you give a talk at the Dutch Pro workshop, he may not upload it to YouTube.
Depending on who you are.
T-shirts.
That's true. Yeah, more t-shirts.
Yeah, I have to reuse the same one just to.
Yeah, maybe I'm now more motivated to do it.
Well, any more questions? Yes, the guy.
Why were you looking for a module to contribute to?
Because you don't get paid for it. And I already have a lot.
because you don't work with Perl with your day job, so.
Exactly. So I needed a break. Any other questions? Right? Think we're done. Thank you very much.